Hey, welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to be setting up a boost FOV effect, but then we're also going to create our own camera lag system. So with that, let's get started. So before we get into creating the systems, I just want to show why we're creating our own custom camera lag effect instead of using the one that comes with Chaos. So for the demonstration, I already have the boost FOV effect in the parent vehicle, but I just want to show why we're creating our own camera lag system as well. So we're just going to play the level, and then if we just drive and we hit boost, and we hit boost again and again. As you all could see, the camera just every time you hit boost, the camera pulls further and further away from the car, right? Which is not exactly what we want. What would make this more interesting is when you accelerate, the camera pulls back, right, to show that the car is in motion. Maybe when you let go of the accelerator, the camera pulls forward back to its normal position, just to kind of show yet again that the car is no longer accelerating. And then when you hit boost, maybe you add a FOV effect where it changes, we add a wider view, and then when you let go of the boost, it returns back to its normal setting. But with the camera lag system that comes with Chaos, it doesn't allow you to add all these different things in between. It just continues to make the camera lag further and further behind the faster and faster the car goes. So that's what we want to change so that we can see the boost FOV effect take place. So we're gonna now jump into creating the system. So the first thing we're gonna do is open up the parent vehicle. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna head over to the spring arm that is connected to the rear camera. Select that. And then we're gonna search for lag. And then we're gonna disable only the enable camera lag, not the camera rotational lag. That we're gonna leave on. We're gonna just disable this one. And then we're gonna close that. We're gonna hit compile. And then where I'm going to add it is on the throttle so that it can take effect depending on whether the play is accelerating or not. So on the throttle, we're going to add it after the set throttle input. By the set throttle input, the chaos one, not the boolean, we're just going to select everything after this. And then we need to create some space. So we can drag this out till about somewhere around here. That's fine. And then what we're gonna add is we're gonna right click and then look for a timeline. And then we're gonna scroll down until we see at the bottom it says add timeline. I'm gonna select this. And then this timeline, we're gonna call this camera lag. So I'm just gonna add this so that from the enhanced input where the triggered is, where we set the throttle input to true, we're gonna take that and then put that in the play. And then the completed, where we set the throttle input back to false, we're gonna take that and then connect that to the reverse. And then we're gonna open up the timeline. We're gonna add a new track, add a flow track, and then we're gonna call this camera lag. And then on here, where it says length, you can set this to whatever you want. I'm gonna set mine to 2 seconds for this video. Just enter. And then on the timeline, we're gonna right click, add key to float to curve float 2. The time, we're gonna set this to 0. The value is also gonna be at 0. And then whenever you change the value, either the time or the value, you need to press enter. If you just click off of it, then it will not accept any changes you've made and just return back to whatever it was. And then we're going to right click again, we're going to add another key. And then this key, by the time, we're going to make it the same as the length. So we're going to set it to 2. And then the value, we're going to set this to 1. And then just going to click off. And then we're going to zoom to fit options. And then we also want to click on the use last keyframe. Then we're going to compile, save, head back to the event graph. And then from the camera lag, we're going to drag off and then we're going to look for lerp, the float lerp. And then instead of it going into the A, we're going to hold control and then just drag this down to the last pin by the alpha. And then we're going to bring in the spring arm, hold control, drag this in, and then we're going to drag off from there. And then we'll look for set spring arm length. Under variables camera, set target arm length. And then from the lerp return value, drag that into the target arm length. And then connect the execution bin from the set to the update that comes out from the timeline. And then we're going to connect this to the set throttle. And then that is it. And then for the A, by default, the spring arm length, I think we set this to 650. And then the B, you can set this to whatever value you want. I'm going to set mine to 900. And then we're just going to drag this back. So with that, we're going to compile, save, and then go and test out to see if this works. So if we hit throttle, the camera pulls back. If we let go of the throttle, if we hit throttle again, we let go, hit again, and then as you can see, it did in fact continuously pull back when we accelerated. When we let go, it reversed and then returned back to the A value, accelerate, it goes back to B, and that is exactly what we want the code to do. So we're now done with the camera lag. And then the last piece of code for the video is we're going to add this to the boost. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to add a timeline. So we're going to right click, going to look for the timeline. At the bottom, add timeline. And then this we're going to call boost FOV. And then the same as we did with the camera lag, the top part, which is connected to the triggered, it's going to go into the play. And then the bottom part connected to the completed, going to connect this to the reverse. We're going to click on the timeline, add a track, add a float. This, I'm going to set this to 1.5. You can set this to whatever value you want. And then we're going to right click, add a key, set this to 0. I'm going to right click again, add another key. And then we're going to set this to 1.5 for the time, the value at 1. And then we're going to compile, head back to the event graph. And then I forgot to rename the tracks. Just go back into the timeline real quick. On the new track, just select it and then press F2 to rename this. We're going to call this boost FOV. Compile, head back to the event graph. And then from here, we're going to drag off. And then we're going to look for a lerp as well, a float lerp. Yet again, hold control, drag it down from A to alpha. And then this time we're going to take the rear camera, hold control, drag this in. We're going to drag off and then look for set field of view. We're going to connect this to the updated for the timeline. And then in field of view, we're going to take that from the return value. So normally the camera has a field of view of 90. So we're going to set this to 90. Set the B, I'm going to set it to 105. Then we're going to compile and then save. I'm going to go and test this out. So now if we hit the boost, okay, maybe I should go and accelerate. I think I'm gonna go exaggerate it a bit. Instead of 105, maybe we'll go with, let's go to 150, just to make it very apparent what the effect is. And wanna play the level. So we hit boost, and then you can see changes, let go, and then changes back. Try and do this again. So as long as we hold boost, the field of view changes. We let go, comes back to what it was, and then that is what we want. So we can play around with the B value here by the boost FOV to get a nice change that you would like, that is noticeable but not too disruptive. But with that, that brings us to the end of this video, and until the next one.